What's up everyone, it's Sprometheus, and today, as you may have guessed, we are going to dive into La Marzocco's newest bundle of joy, the Swift Mini, and we're going to find out if it lives up to that $2,500 price tag. First, before I dive into anything, I do want to preface this entire review by saying, obviously, it's pretty clear that I'm a La Marzocco fan. A good portion of my wardrobe is filled up with La Marzocco t-shirts, and my brother works for the commercial branch here in the US. But that being said, I think I can be non-biased about this grinder because I have high expectations as a fan, but also as someone that knows that they've been around for almost 100 years. I've also decided to set this review up and format it in a different way to keep my opinions about the test results separate from the tests. So first, I'll be putting the Swift Mini through its paces, focusing solely on the features and how they perform. And in the final section, I'll be going over what these tests actually mean to me and how they could possibly affect you as a potential end user of the Swift Mini. The Swift Mini, like its sibling the Linea Mini, is a scaled down home version of its commercial counterpart. The full-size Swift is known in the coffee industry as a workflow grinder. Not only does it grind, but it also distributes and tamps. This eases a lot of stress on baristas in high-volume cafes, which also tend to have a lot more turnover and not a ton of time to train staff. The Swift Mini does the same, but it's aimed at those who want to remove those variables in preparation from their home workflow. In an effort to also create even more value for the money, the Swift Mini also pivots, both literally and figuratively, to be able to grind for filter coffee as well, which is a pretty unique feature. From first glance, the Swift Mini is very different from your average grinder. The angles, dials, and even the hopper have a very modern look to them. Inside the grinder is a relatively small set of 32mm burrs, but paired with a fast motor that grinds through 18 grams of coffee in about 6 seconds. Once a portafilter is locked into place, the indicator light on the activation button will turn green and it's ready to go. With one press of the button, beans are dosed, ground, and grinds then fall down through a dosing chamber where they are distributed and tamped using an impeller. The impeller starts low in the basket, and as it spins, it both distributes and tamps in layers as it slowly works its way up to the final dose. The entire process of grinding, dosing, distribution, and tamping takes about a total of 9 seconds, and the finished product comes out looking like a well-groomed and perfectly tamped puck. As we all know, espresso is finicky. Grinders are not a set-it-and-forget-it piece of equipment, and the Swift Mini is no different in that regard. If you're watching this, it's likely you already understand grind size adjustments, which on the Swift is the upper dial. But this lower dial is a whole new horizon for grinders. Unlike most espresso grinders, the Swift Mini has an added variable, which is the dose. So this presents a bit of a challenge in dialing in, as you'll need to align both your dose and your grind size for a proper extraction. But when it comes to automatic dosing and the fact that it's a main feature of the grinder, having it to be accurate back to back should be an expectation. To put this to the test, I filled the hopper, dialed in a dose of 20 grams, and got to grinding. I ground and weighed out a total of 10 shots altogether. Of the 10 shots tested, the doses ranged from 0.1 to 0.9 grams in variance. Proper distribution and tamping are of course a major factor in getting an ideal espresso extraction. Putting control of that into the hands of a machine like the Swift Mini seems like it could be a great way of removing any possible human variables, which within the process of distribution and tamping can be most prevalent. But the question is, does a simple stainless impeller do this consistently shot to shot? To answer that question, I pulled every shot I ground during the dosing test. So out of the 10 shots I pulled, the results were fairly mixed. 6 of the shots ran between what I would consider good to great, but the other 4 shots showed evidence of uneven distribution and tamping with some dead spots, spurting, and one shot in particular had some serious channeling issues and even showed evidence of that on the top of the puck. The filter coffee and single dose function on the Swift Mini is a pretty unique feature. By lifting this silver lever on the back, you disengage and release the top portion of the grinder on a swing arm. This allows you to bypass the impeller chute and grind not only in a single dose style, but also directly into the filter dripper of your choice. To test out the single dose function, I measured out exactly 20 grams of coffee and ran it through the grinder to get exactly 20 grams of coffee out the other side. As you'd expect, the filter coffee function works well too. The only issue was the alignment of the burrs. I was grinding espresso on an 8, which is halfway through the entire range of the stepless dial, and it wouldn't allow me to go quite coarse enough. With a different burr alignment where espresso falls closer to the 3 or 4 mark on the dial would give you more room to play with some coarser grind sizes. In terms of taste, I don't have a ton to say as it's a very subjective thing, but I have no complaints. The Swift Mini uses some high quality burrs that I speculate come from Etzinger, who I also think either made the grinder or at the very least assembled it. Now that I've gone through all the features of the Swift Mini, pulled quite a few shots, and spent nearly a week with it as part of my daily coffee routine, there are some issues I have with the grinder. When using the standard function of the grinder, there are a lot of retained grinds through the dosing shaft and on top of the impeller. This not only can create a messy workstation, but if you don't remove the portafilter very gently, any shaking of the grinder will drop a bunch of excess grounds on top of your puck. The Swift Mini itself is very top heavy, and it seems as though most of the 30 pounds is clearly in the upper portions of the grinder. Because of that, when installing or removing a portafilter, you'll need to hold down the grinder to keep it from tipping, shaking, or sliding across your counter. The adjustment dials are super stiff, which is likely because of how new the grinder is, but the dials are completely smooth, so they can be slippery and frustrating to place accurately. In the end, my personal take on the Swift Mini is it's a jack of all trades, but a master of none. As a detailed focused barista, I find its level of inaccuracy in dosing by weight and its level of inconsistency with tamping and distribution unacceptable for a grinder that costs $2,500. With that in mind, I feel like espresso hobbyists and enthusiasts like me and most likely like you aren't the target market for this grinder, but it leaves me wondering who is. Those who want espresso with little to no effort would likely go for some kind of automatic espresso machine and would find little to no use in some kind of standalone grinder. So who is bridging that gap? Who is buying a $2,500 grinder tamper / distributor to pair with their already manual espresso machine just to do less work in preparation? It seems like people who are buying these things are people who are hobbyists and enthusiasts, and it seems like the people who would buy this grinder to pair with their La Marzocco or whatever prosumer machine you're using seems like a very small segment of the home barista population. So with all that in mind, my final thoughts on the Swift Mini is it's a swing and a miss. Of course, I have huge respect for La Marzocco as a company and for the people who put in the effort to create and build and set up this grinder for market, but my question is, where does it fit in? Lastly, I want to know your thoughts on the Swift Mini. I'm sure a good number of you are professional baristas or espresso enthusiasts or someone who's considering buying the Swift Mini, and I want to know, would you want this on your bar? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see y'all next week. A big thank you to my August Patreons, Ads, James B, David, Christopher, John K, Squeegee, Roe, Brian, Lisa, Thomas B, Andre, Rick Racer, Sean Noel, Spookus, Bound Coffee, Mika, Samantha, Nathan, Claire, Steven, James K, Josh, Andrew Horrison, Bobby, Corey C, Curry, Ninja Warrior Coffee, Testing 123, Jason, Dave B, Jerry, Marcus, RD, Tim, Matt, Tony, Zachary V, Tyler, and UK Espresso, and of course a big thank you to the Barista and Barback tiers. If you want any information on my Patreon, there's a link in the description and in the upper right hand corner right now. And last but not least, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that little bell button for notifications of new videos posted every Friday. Follow my Instagram at Sprometheus for content throughout the week, my blog at Sprometheus.com, my coffee at littlegiant.coffee, and as always, stay caffeinated. Ponyboy.